All right. Facebook, Dr. Brett Spradlin here, Divine Design Natural Health, and I better not get too close. Just hold all of the applause for the audio and the video quality, because Andrew once again had to be gone tonight for family problems. So pray for him. Thank you, Andrew and Michaela, praying for you. But we're just going off of a telephone tonight. So in lieu of that, our crazy Facebook audience right now is barely holding me back from jumping right away. We're not going to mess around with the folders and all the other stuff. We'll cover all that later off of Facebook. So tonight, I just wanted to talk to you about, and hold all questions until later. There's some things that you'll probably want to talk about. We'll do it off Facebook. That's just a little caveat. So I just want to greet everyone. Everyone already has folders. We're good with that. So my goal with all of this is to raise your awareness. By the way, I want to raise your awareness right now. Go on Facebook, like us if you haven't already. Like us, follow us, share this, check in, do whatever you'd like. So I just want to give you some, I'm going to give you a bunch of nuggets, but the main goal tonight, I want to at least give you one nugget that you can take with you. You need to get out there and tell people what is going on. The media is censoring, Facebook is censoring, Google is censoring, Amazon is censoring, they're pulling books off the shelves. So it's the age of censorship has begun, and people need to know this. It's not just crazy theories, it's actual things out there that are hurting people that aren't being talked about. One particularly I'm going to bring up tonight that has been around for a very long time, and they're just finally starting to say it's harmful for people. If you want to know what that is, Facebook, you're going to have to stick around. So my intention is to raise your awareness so that you have at least one nugget walking out of here, so that you can talk to Joe at the water cooler, or you can talk to Mary at church youth group or something like that. You can say something that will speak into somebody's lives that will set them free from years of heartache and torment, okay? I say that with contrite heart because sometimes it's difficult being the messenger. Sometimes you got to say things that people don't necessarily want to hear, or say things that they might take. I'll never forget the first time I had to talk to a woman about her intrauterine device, and I thought, how do I talk about this? I know this is what's causing problems with her, but how do I say this? Or the first time I talked to somebody who sold a lot of cosmetics, and I had to tell them, hey, this is what's causing the problem. So it's not a popular place to be, but it's an effective place to be. So I just ask you all to kind of be that person, be that messenger of truth. Because the first thing truth is going to do before it sets you free is it's going to make you angry. I think we can all agree on that. So I just got to present the truth. How you receive it, that's kind of up to you. That's a little caveat I like to throw out there for everybody. Every decision or purchase that we make, we are going to do two things. It's going to pursue pleasure, or it's going to avoid pain. So some of these things we're talking about tonight, you will have done some of these, or you will have pursued some of these. But it's not something that you should be ashamed of. It's at the time that's the best you knew, okay? And we're going to do, Facebook, I didn't mention this. We're going to do a quick run through a ton of stuff in the next 20 minutes. Around about 6:30, 6:45, we're going to have a special guest. You won't want to miss this, I promise. And I hope Hannah, can you make sure Hannah is ready for the camera and everything? At 6:30-ish? Yes, you. Yes, thank you. So, basically, before we get into any of this, just understand, if I were to write a disease topic up here, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, Crohn's disease, irritable bowel, whatever, peripheral neuropathy, if I were to write something up here, nutritional deficiencies or organ dysfunction can cause singularly or can work in conjunction to cause that problem. Would everyone agree with that? Have any of your other doctors ever told you that eczema, X disease here, whether it was eczema or psoriasis or whatever, could be caused by a nutritional deficiency? Have you ever heard that? But everybody knows that women take prenatal vitamins to avoid what? Right? So if a forming baby needs nutritional efficiency, wouldn't a healing adult from day to week to month to year need nutritional efficiency, right? So we've been kept in the dark a little bit about that. How about this? Sometimes you're told that, well, your pancreas isn't working right, it's not producing enough insulin, so we're going to give you more insulin. How many of you have heard that? But we don't ask the question, why is there so much sugar in your blood? We're just going to pump more insulin into you, which thereby ages you and causes more problems. Instead of lowering blood sugar, we're just increasing insulin, right? Instead of talking about what is causing the organ dysfunction, right? Or instead of talking about what's causing the nutritional deficiencies, well, when these work in conjunction, 10%, 90%, could be 50-50, could be 0, 100, whatever, you're going to have a disease process. Anyone who's been in this class before that did the Nancy Appleton's 146 Reasons Why Sugar is Ruining Your Health, any of those diseases, sugar could be responsible for any of those diseases. How many of you in here have changed your diet? Every hand goes up because of what you've learned here, right? You've been here 4 days, right? That's very good. So all of these together, nutritional deficiencies and organ dysfunction, if we know that those cause problems and they lead to disease, keep all of that in mind when we talk about all of these things here. This is what you need to understand as well. Anything can cause anything. Anything can cause anything. Could it be the underwear you're wearing? Yes. Could it be the rings you're wearing and the jewelry? Yes. Could it be the cell phone you're carrying? Yes. Could it be a problem with the food you're eating? Yes. Anything can cause anything. 2 major rules. If you remember anything, just remember those. Anything can cause anything, and everything is connected to everything. Just remember that. You'll never hear that in traditional, conventional healthcare. If we determine that we have not heard all of the truth about these, or the truth about some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight, we have to ask the question of, what is the truth, and how can we make things better? How can we get better? How can we tell our friends and our family and our coworkers about the results that we get here when we get 20 or 30 or even 40% improvement? That's normal. When we get 60 or 80%, 90% improvement sometimes, that's totally normal. Good success rates with oncologists is in the 2 to 5% range. And what that means is if their patients are alive within a couple of years. That's a good success rate. Normal, traditional North American oncologists, the success rate is 2 to 5%. That means their patients are alive, 2 to 5%. We get normal success rates of 40 to 90% in about 3 months. That's by dietary modification, handling this, fixing this, and thereby eliminating this. So just know that. If we find that something's not working, we have to figure that there's another way to fix things. So that's why we have an alternative to traditional conventional medical health care, which, by the way, has not been getting too many people better. Have you seen too many people get better? Did you go in the traditional route? Anybody? I mean, outside an emergency room, we're big fans. But that's not, the majority of things is outside the emergency room. The majority, 98% of healthcare is outside an emergency room. Most of the emergency room visits are being caused by what? Statistically, what are most emergency room visits?
Accidents.
No, not even that. ADRs. Anybody know what ADRs are? Adverse drug reactions. That's most of the hospital visits, most of the emergency room visits. Any nurse, any on-call physician, any paramedic, or any EMT would tell you the same thing. Adverse drug reactions is where your taxpayer dollars are going to pay for an ambulance ride 4 blocks, which will cost you $1,200. Okay? We don't have a healthcare crisis in this country. We have a drug overdose crime going on in this country. That's what is going on, and I could go into all the statistics and all how much of every healthcare dollar is spent on a drug and how much of it is actually spent on care. The percent spent on drugs is overwhelming, and there's so much spent on advertising. There's ratios of advertising to research and development. It's astronomical. So the advertising goes through the roof. I'm not here to just preach all the bad news to you. I'm just telling you that outside of an emergency room, you'll very rarely see very many people get better. So if people understand that if what they have isn't getting better, then it's only going to get worse if they continue doing the same things. So they have to confront the idea that you want to get better, and therefore you have to do something different. That's why we're here. Does that make sense? Totally. So I will read you these first and foremost, just to give you a little, taking a detour here. A few testimonials of people who decided to take a different route. Shoulders were tight. I coached baseball, so throwing with the players was a little difficult. Also, I wasn't throwing very far because of it. This guy was throwing about 100 feet in pain. And throwing 100 feet with a baseball, he needs to throw farther. He's a coach. We adjusted the shoulders, and I went out feeling young again, throwing baseball. baseballs with the players, was throwing in a line easily from 250 to 270, no pain. And that was with one adjustment. We'd never adjusted his shoulders before because he'd never said anything about it. Here's another one. I had 7 different doctors for various physical issues. I don't think I've even seen this one. I had 7 different doctors for various physical issues. Wow. I only have one doctor now. Dr. Brett has had answers for all my concerns, eliminating the need for other treatment. Money saved, life simplified. Right there. How many of you want 7 doctors? How many of you want 1? Wouldn't it make more sense that one doctor would know? Take that, Facebook. You like that? Down from 7 doctors to 1. That's not being cocky, that's just being confident. Because your liver doctor is giving you medications that your heart doctor is going to blame the arrhythmias on. And then your neurologist is giving you drugs that the liver doctor is going to blame the hepatitis on. And it all goes in this vicious circle. And who knows what doctor is covered by what lab is covered with what drug, according to what insurance company. It's a mess. That's why we have a mess. I see heads nodding. You've been through this. Yeah. Next, before coming, I suffered from allergies often and fatigue during the day. Oh, Mom wrote this. She's only 10 years old. The past couple weeks, my allergies have not bothered me at all, and my fatigue is improving. That's a 10-year-old. She's a precious little girl, and you know who that is if you're watching. Make that little face. She's hilarious. I had nagging lower back pain and reoccurring dry hands. They'd peel, crack. I had heartburn a lot and seemed fatigue a lot. I love to eat sweets. My back's better. Dr. Spradlin explained how sugar causes inflammation. Remember that? So immediately I quit eating sugar and breads, started taking supplements following a plan of nutrition. My back doesn't hurt, my hands are smoother, heartburn is better, I have a lot more energy, and even dropped 15 pounds in 1 month. And he's been here about a month and a half now, 2 months maybe. That's a guy with rough hands. He works in chemicals. So he had his palms were cracking. We're going to get into some of that tonight. My whole life I've had allergies. For years I needed Zyrtec and Flonase daily to breathe freely and to not have a constant headache. We live in allergy central here, and at least that's what people think. But you know what? Interesting thing is, it's not so much the Bradford pears and the plants that people talk about. What else is very common around here? What else like no other region, like no other place? And I just mentioned it. Anybody? How many chemical plants do we have here? Not throwing anybody under the bus. At least 3, right? That I know of. Olin, Bowater, Walker, right? Those are the big 3, right? I'll get more into that later tonight. But you find a very interesting, that's the second person who had allergies, but it wasn't really an allergy problem. Now I take standard process supplements for my allergies, have no headaches, can breathe freely, and have no side effects. I've finally found a sustainable solution to my allergies. Last one. We had a not so good diet, heading down a bad path, on a couple of medications, unsure where to get quality healthcare advice. In other words, we were clueless to what we should be feeding our bodies. With improved diet, nutritional supplements, we're now off all meds, eating a cleaner nutritional diet with clear direction. We've slowly changed over time, and so glad to be treated by Dr. Brown. There you go. So, this is not just yes, I'm a trained chiropractor, but this is not just a mom and pop chop shop. You know, there's a lot more stuff going on here. We're going to get right into it. So, as far as the presentation goes, I want to deliver a couple things to you. Today is Keep America Beautiful. Now, I chose that title because April is kind of recycling month. Keep America Beautiful, don't litter, here comes spring, here come all the flowers. So Keep America Beautiful seemed like an apt title to go after. But this I was going to go towards a little bit more of the pollution, and let's recycle and this and that, but I found a few articles and a few things going on in modern medicine and in modern news that I thought we should talk about. Kind of the subtitle of this is, If It's True, It's Not New. Years ago, I heard a pastor say, if it's true, it's not new, and if it's new, it's not true. And I thought, wow, that really stuck in my head. So if it's true, it's not new. In other words, everything that we do, there's nothing new under the sun, right? King Solomon said that. So if it's true, it's not new. In other words, if there's something that's true, it's been around for a long time. And it's not necessarily these new advances that are going to take us in this new direction. In other words, if we were going to have the greatest healthcare on earth, don't you think all of the imaging and all of the inventions and all of these crazy surgeries that we have, don't you think that would improve life for everybody? But it just really doesn't. If it's true, it's not new. And if it's new, it's not true. Next time, 2 weeks from now, we'll get into April 22nd, we'll get into the other side of this. If it's new, it's not true. And that's going to be Earth Day and Ancient Medicine. So we're going to be talking about everything that we use here. This is April 8th. If it's true, it's not new. Keep America beautiful. The idea of keeping things beautiful is not new. It's been around for a long time. And Earth Day and Ancient Medicine, that's if it's new, it's not true. We're going to talk about exactly what we do here, because everything we're doing here is ancient. We're using my hands, we're using plants, animals, water, heat, electricity, and light. You can't beat it. And there's nothing there that can hurt you. So modern advances, though, on the other hand, are kind of like bypass surgeries, and granted we have those for emergency medicine and things like that. You break a bone, yes, we've got some very good advances, but beyond that, antibiotics are brand new. They've been around 60 or 80 years. Imaging procedures, this and that, they've been around a very short amount of time, and we need to really think about, how about if we don't need the imaging procedures? How about if we're so healthy that we don't need the antibiotics? The emerging patterns in worldwide health, despite all of these modern advances, there are three things. I've covered this before in other classes, but this is still around. Emerging patterns in worldwide health, despite modern advances. One, we're being made dumber. IQ points are dropping regularly. That should not happen in a civilized country, should it? That should not happen in an industrialized Western society. Why is that happening? We can cover that. We're being made sicker. Why are we getting sicker? It seems like we'd be getting healthier. We've got every surgery, drug, and vaccine, right? Third one, we're being made infertile. The birth rate is plummeting. How many of you knew that? And then we've got 5G coming out. That's going to wreak havoc. We won't even get into that right now. That's in a future class. Come back later. The question, how do you, if we're going to keep America beautiful, how do you stay beautiful if you're dumb, if you're sick, and you're infertile? Those are the three emerging health patterns, despite modern advances. Okay, that's worldwide. That's not just America, that's worldwide. There's exogenous exposure with pollution. Exogenous means from outside in. And then we'll cover here in a minute, we'll cover endogenous. That means from inside out. So I just want to cover a couple of things. The big news, the exogenous exposure with pollution that just recently happened. I want to read a little excerpt from an article about the herbicide, the Roundup lawsuits. You've seen them all on TV now for years and years and years. How long has Roundup been around? Since the mid-'80s, at least. Remember the Super Bowl commercial with the guy coming out? This was, I don't know, whatever Super Bowl commercial this was. It came out spinning guns with Roundup, going around the driveway, shooting the weeds. It appealed to football fans. It appealed to gunslingers. It appealed to heroes. It appealed to men. And Roundup sales went through the roof. There was one Super Bowl commercial that sent them over the edge. It was crazy. But here's this. This happened a little while ago. This was mid-March. I think it was about 3 weeks ago. A California jury found that exposure to Monsanto's glyphosate-based Roundup weed killer product had caused this guy, Dwayne Johnson, to develop an aggressive form of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. This is one disease. One disease. The jury also found that Monsanto was fully aware of the product's dangers, but did all it could to hide the risks from the public. Monsanto, Bayer, DuPont, these are the same companies that were trying to go against the GMO food labeling laws just a couple of years ago. Remember that whole debacle? Remember that? When you have to have tags on your clothes that say 90% cotton, 10% spandex, but they don't want you to know it's in your food. The little thing on your mattress, you go to jail if you take that off, but they don't want you to know it's in your food. Crazy, huh? So they knew that it caused cancer, and they were fully aware of its dangers, and they attempted to hide all the risks. So the judgment demanded that punitive damages in the amount of $289 million be paid to Mr. Johnson as compensation. You think it's a win, right? Of course, Monsanto's legal team immediately appealed it. The Superior Court judge upheld the decision, though she did reduce the amount payable to $78 million. So it went from $290 to $78. That's a pretty big jump. That's not the point I'm trying to make. And just like that, not one, but two Goliaths were struck down, because just months before the verdict was delivered, German chemical giant Bayer entered into a merger with Monsanto at the eye-watering cost of, anybody remember how much that was? You didn't see it on the news, did you? I don't think it was on. It was $66 billion. Bayer, the German pharmaceutical company, bought Monsanto, which is the chemical company that's responsible for poisoning most of the population of the world, for $66 billion. A lot of money. Though the $78 million settlement 66 billion versus 78 million. You see that that's 1,000th, almost 1,000th. They didn't even feel it. A billion is a million thousand, is 1,000 millions. You get that? So $78 million, drop in the bucket to 66 billion. That's just what the purchase price was. You don't know about the assets and everything else, right? So the settlement might seem like chump change to these giant corporations. This court case represents just the tip of the iceberg because another 8,700 plaintiffs who claim their health was damaged by Roundup are waiting in the wings with a massive class action lawsuit. That's why you're seeing the commercials on TV. They're drawing more people in. So that, along with all the pesticides, herbicides, Roundup being a pesticide, and an herbicide, it's an herbicide, along with all chemical exposure of factory workers, what we talked about earlier, a lot of factory workers who are shaving metal and being around chemicals, spraying certain chemicals, a lot of these people are getting sick. The material safety and data sheets are right there in their workplace. If you've ever looked through any of those, it's mind-blowing. It says right in there how toxic some of this stuff is. So the chemical plants, what we talked about, I mentioned that I was going to talk about before. I had a patient here a while ago who said that he was getting his air conditioner worked on. And I may be missing, I called him today to try to get some of this information to make sure I didn't say this wrongly, but forgive me. Well, you'll never know if I say it wrong anyway, so here, I'll just make it up. I'm just kidding. But he said he called to get his air conditioner worked on, or one of the guys that came to his house working on the stuff said that there are certain parts within the air conditioner that the manufacturer won't warranty if it's within a certain mile radius of certain chemical manufacturers. Being the fact that we live here, where there's so many chemical manufacturers, the company that manufactured the parts in this patient's air conditioning unit wouldn't honor the warranty because it was within X amount of miles from Olin, Bowwire, Wacker, all these companies. So when he asked, well, why is that? They said because the parts per million in the air is so high that it'll make it'll dissolve either the part itself or the covering on the part by just the parts per million of these chemicals that are in the air. And they figured out that they had so many failures of the certain part within certain pockets of the United States, they figured out that it was the air quality. Parts in your air conditioner unit melting, or the cover, or the encasement, or the little contacts on it, getting eroded and messing up from chemical manufacturers way down the road. So they degrade sooner due to pollution in the air. So if that tells you about your air conditioner parts, what does that tell you about your parts? So, is Cleveland really the home of allergies? I just read you where'd it go? I just read you two accounts right there of people who thought they had allergies, and they didn't. So, in other words, if you put something up here, what if that's not really the diagnosis? What if those allergies that you think are the Bradford pears, or the pollen, or the trees, or you went and got an allergy test and they told you were allergic to water and food and pets and trees and grass? What if it's not really an allergy? What if it's the fact that there's these particles in the air that are getting in your lungs and screwing with you and your ability to breathe and live and see, and you're addressing the wrong thing because you're going and getting allergy shots, which are doing what? Putting more bad stuff into you, right? You're making the problem worse. So I don't want to spend too much time on that. But endogenous exposure for women. So that's just one example of exogenous exposure, stuff coming from the outside. Endogenous exposure for women. We're talking about beauty stuff. We're talking about cosmetics. Keep America beautiful, right? What do women go through just to stay pretty? Or to try to stay pretty? Cosmetics, hair color, lotions, wire bras, HRT creams, fillings, a lot of dental work, medications, cleaning supplies, Botox, fillers, plastic surgery. I mean, there's innumerable places around here you can go get Botox, fillers, all kinds of stuff. Just right here alone, I'm going to take one of those things out, just to give you a little, understanding of how big of a problem this is. Roundup was around since the mid-'80s. Nobody talked bad about it. Nobody said anything about it until what? I didn't hear anything bad about it. I'm sure there were scientists and people who were having a problem with it early on. They probably warned us of it. The Sertolini study was a study that came out in the early 2000s, I believe, where a researcher took GMO food gave it to the rats, GMO food that had been coated with pesticide, Roundup, gave it to the rats, gave other food to the rats that was not GMO or anything to do with Roundup or pesticides or anything. This was just GMO food. The rats grew tumors that were bigger than the rats. These rats over here were fine. The study was buried, the guy was destroyed. Same thing happened with the herbicide, with Roundup. I'm sure people came out and said, this is going to cause problems, it's going to be in the soil for decades, we're not going to get rid of it. What happened with herbicide, with the Roundup, decades ago is the same thing that's been happening with breast implants. Anybody heard of this? Now it's a whole new thing. It's breast implants alone. There's 300,000 of them done every year in the US. It's now called breast implant illness. Now think about this. This is breast implants. This isn't intrauterine devices. This isn't troches. This isn't hormone replacement therapy. This is breast implants, okay? Silicone, saline, whole 9 yards. Breast implant illness is now being widely acknowledged. Hormone problems, thyroid issues, autoimmune diseases. So if you're putting an autoimmune disease up here, but you're bypassing the whole idea that the autoimmune disease might have been caused by something, you're just putting a diagnosis up here, you might be missing it. All of these things, all these autoimmune diseases are in response to implants. Doctors are rarely acknowledging this, but there are some doctors who stop doing the implants and they're just doing explants now. Only doing explants. Now, Hollywood is perpetuating this, right? They're perpetuating the whole thing. But once again, keep America beautiful, right? Most problems don't appear until about 4 to 6 years after the implantation. So it could be easily stated that, and this is just one example. We're not talking cosmetics yet. We're just talking about breast implants. So nearly everyone sees a majority of symptoms go away as soon as they're removed. Canada halted the sale of breast implants. But in America, the FDA still has not. Same thing happened 20, 30 years ago, 30 years ago with Roundup. Now it's happening. Same thing is happening with breast implants. So if we continue doing what we've always done, and we trust other governing bodies to tell us the truth about things, yet our own mind goes, wait, this is a sack of plastic filled with chemicals. It might cause problems. Saline is not so much a chemical, but it still doesn't belong there. The sack of plastic doesn't belong there. The silicone definitely doesn't belong there. What was the solution to some of this? Now they put textured stuff on it. So it's much like a bladder mesh. When you put a bladder mesh into someone's bladder, it's designed, it's a mesh, it's designed to have ridges and things on it so that the scar tissue grows over it, and it's impossible to get out. You will never get that out of there. Like a lot of bladder meshes, you can't take them out. So the solution to some of this was to make the breast implants textured so they wouldn't slip. The jury's still out on how that works. But along with all the endogenous exposure to women, you've got the antibiotics, you've got other things I won't mention while we're on Facebook, procedures, epidurals, all kinds of, basically what I'm saying is the chemical warfare is now, it's in your front yard. And it's not some weapons of mass destruction on the other side of the planet. It's in your front yard, and they've been selling it to you the whole time. So how do you get through it? How do you get past it? That's the key. Yeah, I've spit at you a bunch of problems, this and that, but keep America beautiful. Remember, when you see friends that are wearing a bunch of makeup, or they walk down the hall and you can smell them before you see them, remember, if you're talking to somebody and they say, yeah, I have to go to my doctor, my cholesterol's high, I have to go get checked out, my breast cancer, my implants, my breast cancer, my mammogram, yearly mammogram. Remember, they're in a situation where all they know is all they know. They have to be told different information because they're going right down the same rabbit hole that many of us have gone through. How do we get through it? Well, nutrition response testing, that's what we do. Since most of your patients here will forego the whole testing. But nutrition response testing, we design clinical nutrition. It's overall for your health. It's not just here's a supplement for a symptom or here's a drug for a disease. It's overall health. It's supplementing and fixing problems. I will give you an example. Someone came in the other day and his only complaint, some of you have heard the story, but it was so poignant, I'm going to tell it again for our Facebook crowd. He came in and his only problem was his knees hurt, he had right lower back pain, he had fatigue, and he had insomnia. Medical sounding diagnosis, right? So we were checking his organs, and only his right kidney showed up and his thyroid. There were two things, or it might have been a lung or something, I can't remember. But his right kidney showed up, and I said, is your back pain, he hadn't said it was right lower back pain, he just said low back pain. So his kidney showed up. I said, is your back pain just on your right side? And he said, yeah, absolutely. I said, right here, about 2 inches lower? He said, yeah, absolutely. And I said, so your insomnia, so do you wake up at night to go pee? I said, yeah. Or he said, yeah, absolutely. And I said, so your insomnia, so you just can't go back to sleep? He's like, yeah, I just lay there and twist and turn, can't go back to sleep. So you get up in the morning then, unrested, and you've got fatigue. Yeah. I said, so that's probably why your knees aren't healing, because you're just not sleeping. And we both kind of looked at each other, and we put all that together, and he said, that makes a lot of sense. What's wrong with my kidney, though? And I said, well, I don't know. I have no idea. Let's fix it. Why would we spend a bunch of time trying to figure out what's wrong with it? Why not just fix it? Why don't we give your body what it says that it needs? Using this right here. Your body will tell us what it needs. If you put poison near your body's going to react. If you put good nutrition on your body will react. So we just put that together. That right there saved him a trip to a nephrologist, an orthopedic surgeon, a sleep doctor, a general practice doctor, to get something for the insomnia. Because all of those simple little steps of this disease process in his body would have led to, the kidney thing led to bladder irritation because it wasn't filtering out things out of his blood, then irritate the bladder, wake him up at night, gets him up, in which case he'd probably be given a sleeping pill to sleep all night, right? In which case he'd probably, either wet his pants or get up, and then go to the bathroom and then not be able to sleep, take another sleeping pill, right? Then he'd wake up in the morning and not feel good, so he'd take something to wake him up, or drink a bunch of coffee, and then his knees are still going to be killing him, so he's going to make a trip to the orthopedic surgeon to get his knees fixed. Do you see how that all goes? That one thing, fixing his kidney, might fix, I said might, fix his urinating problem, which will fix his sleeping problem, which will fix his fatigue problem, which will fix his knees problem. Overall health. It's not something to fix his knees. It's not something to fix his fatigue. It's something to fix the source, the root, the very cause of the problem right here. And here's the best thing. Safe and natural. Nothing we do can hurt you. Nothing. If I knocked you down in the hallway, that might hurt you, but that's never going to happen. The food, the plants, the animals, the adjustments, laser, nutrition, saunas, detox. Never. Nothing can hurt you here. If my malpractice, let's just say, I've got friends who are medical doctors, their malpractice is $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. That's just root base. Because if they write a prescription for the wrong drug, guess what? Why is my malpractice $1,800 a year? Because the insurance companies see that we're not a threat. So it's very, 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 very safe. Who does more numbers than insurance companies, right? Does that make sense? So other than that, so how do we fix all this? Polytherapeutic strategy. Chiropractic. Greatest, largest, most ancient healing profession on the planet. You're putting energy into someone else's body. Your diet, we already talked about that. Supplements. I will read you this. Many physicians, this is a very famous neurologist and MD named Daniel Amen. And anybody know anything about brains knows Daniel Amen. He's actually quoting Mark Hyman here. Mark Hyman is a doctor that many of you probably know. Many physicians say that if you eat a balanced diet, you don't need supplements. If people eat wild, fresh, organic, local, non-genetically modified food grown in virgin mineral and nutrient-rich soils that's not been transported across vast distances and stored for months before being eaten, and work and live outside, breathe only fresh, unpolluted air, drink only pure, clean water, sleep 9 hours a night, move their bodies every day, and are free from chronic stressors and exposure to environmental toxins, then it's possible that they might not need supplements. How perfect is that? I will redo this. Well, we're going to pass on that one. We'll pass on that one. I don't want to go too long here because we have a special guest and we can't take all night. And I do want to show you this. In the spirit of Keep America Beautiful, in October, you usually get these right here. Hazardous. I love this. I found this one day. Oh yeah, I should show Facebook. Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day, and they offer document shredding too. And this was offered, this comes in your bill. Said Saturday, October 6th. So this probably came in your September, sometime in September. And if you open this up, first thing that falls out is got drugs. It's from Cleveland Utilities. I'll read this to you. It says got drugs. Look at that. It says, most abused prescription drugs come from family and friends. You could be a drug dealer and not even know it. So on Saturday, whatever date, from 10 to 2, you can go to this location and turn in your prescription drugs. But I'm telling you right now, if they're painkillers, they're going to sell them. They ain't going to turn them in, they're going to sell them. And then it has all of these unused or expired prescription meds are a public safety issue leading to accidental poisoning, overdose, and abuse. Non-medical use of prescription drugs ranks second only to marijuana as the most common form of drug abuse in America. Marijuana is a plant, by the way. And then it has all these other statistics on this. Then, if you open this up, Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day. How many of you have seen me share this before? No? Oh, this is great. So I opened this up one day, and I said, Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day. I highlighted it right there. If you read, you got to get rid of that hazardous waste, okay? Oil and fuel additives. So it tells you what, when, where, who. There's no cost. You just do it. You just go on this certain day and drop everything off. Oil and fuel additives, grease and rust solvents, starter fluids, body putty, gasoline. I mean, this is stuff you don't want in the water table, right? This is stuff you don't want slipping into your backyard. Roofing tar, driveway sealant. Then we get down here to pesticides. We just talked about those. That's why we had that little talk. Fertilizers, wood preservatives, then miscellaneous stuff like pool chemicals, photo processing chemicals, mercury thermostats and thermometers, medicines and drugs, aerosols, compressed gas. Did you catch that? Medicines and drugs. Go and dispose of these because you don't want these slipping into a landfill. But it's perfectly fine if you ingest it. They're telling you right here. The average American over 50 years old is on 15 medications, but if you have unused drugs laying around, take them to the disposal site on this date because we don't want them going into the ground. But it's perfectly okay if you eat them. Do you see a problem with that? No one can argue this right here. It's in front of your very nose, and they're hoping that you don't have the brain to see it because you're already fluoridated, you're watching so much TV you can't see straight, and that you're not thinking for yourself. So when you, I better take my Lipitor down to the place and dump it. I better take my lisinopril. I better take my Celebrex down. Yeah, I'm not taking it. I just keep forgetting to take it. Might as well get rid of it. Don't want to flush it down the toilet. Funny, huh? So in the spirit of recycling and in the spirit of keeping America beautiful, I want to just refer household hazardous waste contains medicine and drugs. Right up there with coal tar, roofing cement, and gasoline. Okay? Now, that being said, diet, supplements, laser, detox, exercise, sleep, stress management, and minimizing negativity, such as social media, TV, newspapers, things like that. Now, any questions on any of that? All right. Well, we have a very special guest. So without further ado, I would like to welcome someone who doesn't even know she's being interviewed. So we'll just give her a few seconds to flip out. Della Spradlin, come on up. Don't kill me. Come on up now. I want to do a little interview. Come on.
It won't hurt.
It's not going to hurt you, I promise. Are we okay right here?
Come this way, Dylan.
Oh, come this way.
This way.
So, Facebook, we are having a little interview, and we're going to be recording this right along with this, right? We're keeping this one going, and we're getting that camera going. Well,
I put it there so Facebook can hear it.
why don't you bring that one up here? That microphone will pick things up a little better. We can do it both ways. We can edit it out of here, or we can keep it going right here. So have a seat.
Just know Facebook, it's gonna look a little weird for a second.
Oh yeah. We'll move this around. So I've got a few questions for you. In the spirit of you guys taking off, just FYI for everybody here, my parents moved down here in October because of, I would say, less than ideal results being given to them medically. And so I'm just saying this because I don't have an axe to grind with anybody. I don't care what's going on as far as what choices people make. People have to make their own choices medically. And we just present them a better idea. I won't say new because it's ancient, just like what we talked about. But we present them a different idea. And if they continue going the same route, they're always going to get what they've always gotten. But up to a certain point, you have to divorce yourself from caring until it's your family, or until it's affecting you. And so I'll let her talk more about this. But this is my mom, that's my dad, and they came down in October because of less than ideal results that was going on. We'll be done by 7:15, by the way. Hi there. And I'll let her talk more about that. But I thought it would be very, very telling and very, very interesting to hear her journey on where she's been in the last, well, even since childhood, just because you had a lot of, interesting stories from, like the thing you told me a couple weeks ago. I didn't know she was on the first cholesterol medication when it first hit the market. Never heard of it. Never heard of it. It was Colested? Colested.
It was a powder
It was a powder.
that you mixed with applesauce or something that you could tolerate to
Yeah.
get it down.
See, this is big stuff. Went home, looked it up, found the ingredients. It was the second ingredient was aspartame, an artificial sweetener. Everybody knows what that is, right? It's Diet Coke. It's what makes Diet Coke, basically. It's like NutraSweet. Number 2 ingredient. I think it was number 2 ingredient, something like that.
Yeah.
So she's got a wealth of information, and so I'll let her get more into that. Probably just 20 minutes or so. We'll talk. Explain just kind of how you were raised and what you thought. We're going here. We're good.
You're both going, yeah.
Okay. So explain how you were raised. This is my mom, and in the spirit of Keep America Beautiful, I thought I'd interview my mom. Love you, Mom. So,
You better after this.
oh no, she's gonna beat me. So tell me, kind of, how were you raised with medicine, and how did you guys revere medicine back then? Because I know you came from a big family. Just tell a little bit about that, because it's changed.
We weren't on a lot of medication.
I haven't started with this yet.
Oh, well, go ahead. Well, let's get started. Oh, I thought I asked. Are we good?
Oh, I said I was ready.
Okay.
I figured you were gonna want to have some kind of intro.
Are we still going on Facebook?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Okay. Sorry, Facebook. Okay. Ready?
Do you want to end off on Facebook?
No, we'll keep it going.
Okay. Ready?
But we need to change this so it's not getting the side of my ear, probably. Can we move that?
Yeah. You ready?
Yes. All right, so we are here with my mom. She's getting ready. They're getting ready to take off back home. This is April 8th. They're leaving in a few days. They've been here for 6 months. We'll talk a little bit about where they were when they first came down, where they are now. But I just want to let her, we're at the end of our Keep America Beautiful class right now, and I wanted to just do a quick interview and just let her speak into your situation, my situation, and just give her a little bit of the floor so that she can say what she grew up doing, why they came down here, what results they got, and we can open it up to, hey, this is, if it's good enough for my parents, the treatment down here, it's good enough for yours. So tell us, Ma, I love you. Don't hit me for interviewing you.
Well,
I sprung this on her. She wasn't prepared. I wanted it to be organic and real so that people didn't think I, fed you. Yeah, I'm not coaching her. This is all real. Facebook, this is real. This is my mom, and I'm proud of you guys. So I'll just ask you a few questions because I want people really to get this because this is happening to your parents. It already happened to mine. It's happening to your parents. It's happening to your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, your kids. It's going to happen to your grandkids if you don't do something. So we got to change this. So just set us up a little bit. How were you raised with medicine, with health? What did you tell us everything you remember about how you were raised? Doctors, medicine, all that.
we didn't have medicine, really. An aspirin for a toothache or an earache was what we got.
Yeah.
And no baby aspirin or...
And you all grew up perfectly fine.
7 of us.
7.
I'm the oldest of 7.
Mom's the oldest of 7. And
we
you had no, did you have vaccines?
we had some in school. When you started school, you
How
had to
many
have
about?
a couple.
Couple?
Maybe 3 or so. It wasn't a lot.
So there were no drugs until, how old were you when you first discovered what drugs were or were put on them?
Probably the Lipitor or Colested was the first.
And speak up a little bit so we make
The
sure.
first drug I had was probably Colested.
Colested, and that was in the mid-80s, about, right?
Probably early 80s.
That was for those of you who
Don't know.
didn't hear us cover that just recently.
Yeah.
Colested was the very first statin drug, cholesterol-lowering drug.
That I know about. but that was.
I think it was the first. We looked it up a while back, and it also had aspartame in it, and it was a powder. It was not a pill. It was a powder that you put in your applesauce. Unbelievable. So you weren't on any drugs until you were in your 40s-ish, right?
Probably.
And you grew up with 7 siblings. It was the 7 of you,
Mm-hmm.
so 6 other siblings, and there were no drugs, nothing. Everybody was perfectly healthy.
Yeah, the most I ever had to do was go to the dentist.
Okay, and
So
everybody
we
ate.
didn't see a doctor.
Back then, everybody was eating organic because that's all there was.
We raised everything we ate. Almost.
Big difference now, huh?
Big garden, canned everything.
Canned everything. Okay, so now, so like explain, like the whole. I know we've talked about this before. I remember you telling me this. The difference in, I'm the youngest of 3. You're the oldest of 7. The birthing and how much it cost between when my sister was born and when I was born. Can you remember the differences in drugs, procedures, costs in birthing? Because we just got done talking about keeping America beautiful.
I know the first one was $75, and that was the hospital and doctor.
You get what you pay for.
Excuse me. She overpaid.
The first,
I don't remember.
so my sister cost $75, right?
But that was a lot of money then.
That was a lot of money, right? Yeah, but
He
you
said
get.
worth every penny.
Oh, huh?
You should put some ages and years and dates on these things so people know what you're talking about.
Say what?
No, that's okay.
No,
Back then.
I'm talking like when she got put on the med.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that
Well, we
kind
said late 80s. We said that. So,
I don't remember what
it
she
had, yeah,
Have I told you?
Colested, I think was late 80s. We looked it up. It was the very first statin lowering drug. So, 60s-ish, so $75 to have a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And then, 20 years later, 15, 20 years later, how much was it to have a kid?
I don't remember what you cost.
You're still paying.
You don't remember?
Did I tell you?
I think you did. I think you said it was. I think it was like 8 or 9 grand or something like that.
It probably was.
Does that sound right?
I can't remember.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it was
I
one from
don't know.
$75. Was that right?
Mm-hmm.
You'd remember it more than me. I was barely
Yeah,
there.
it was $75 for 9 months prenatal, and the hospital, the doctor. You only got one bill. That was it.
You got one bill.
That was the better deal.
Wow. You get what you pay for.
That was a better deal.
That's right. So there was a massive disparity between what you paid for,
Mm-hmm.
your first kid, and then a little while later, how much? Do you remember anything else about that? Between like what they did drug-wise, procedure-wise, any of that?
I know I was in the hospital 5 days with her. And probably not even 2 with you, I don't think.
No. So I was easier. See?
So they just didn't keep you long then, now they discharge you
Right.
right away, more
Okay.
than,
Another question for you. So explain like insurance and medications. What did you originally know of them?
we didn't have any.
You didn't have insurance.
Mm-mm.
Didn't know really what it was. Huh?
Try to speak up.
Oh, let's try to speak up.
Couldn't afford it,
Couldn't afford insurance?
I guess not.
Or you couldn't
Didn't have-
afford medicine?
We never needed medicine that we knew of.
So you
We
didn't
weren't
have
sick.
insurance?
Didn't have insurance.
So what would, so
we,
the
we
question.
were young and didn't know that we needed it. We didn't need it. We were healthy, so.
So the question then a lot of people would think is, well, what if something bad happened? How would you answer that?
Cross that bridge when it came to it.
She said we'd cross that bridge when it came to it. Okay, so now fast forward a little bit and explain, Dad's health and what happened the first little while, like when the first he was doing okay until the first step, right?
Well, he
Do-
had
are we okay?
a mild
Plug it in.
TIA in 2002.
A transient ischemic attack in 2002. That's a transient means short term, not long lasting. Ischemic means the blood stopped flowing to some area. Attack just means it happens suddenly. So transient ischemic attack, a TIA, is also called a mini stroke. That was in
And then-
2002.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fast forward.
Then 2004, he had 3 stents.
In 2004,
Then he was
3 stents. So those are little wire mesh deals that push the artery open so that blood can flow. And I'll tell you what the surgeon told me about those here in a little bit. But go ahead.
He was good till probably 2017.
So Labor Day 2017, then he had another small event where he got dizzy, right?
And
Labor Day.
yeah, they didn't find what was wrong with him for a
Speak
long
up a
time.
little bit.
I don't know that they gave us any diagnosis at all at that time.
Well, but let's review. They did, tell me if I'm
All
wrong.
kinds of tests.
MRIs, CAT scans, blood
Mhm.
labs, X-rays, ultrasounds probably,
Mhm.
right? They found
Everything.
nothing wrong.
Couldn't find anything.
That was Labor
I can
Day.
remember.
But then when did they find the heart murmur?
Well, they always said he had a heart murmur all the time, but it wasn't anything to worry about.
Yeah.
And the heart doctor told him he probably wouldn't need anything till he was in his late 90s. So
Okay.
it wasn't a bad heart murmur.
Okay, so that was Labor Day. Then what happened? Labor Day 2017. Then what happened?
Then in February he had. You should have given me some time to study on this.
That's why I was asking you earlier today. Do you remember all this? Well, because they
I
kept
should
they
I
kept
should at least
pushing
have
you.
my list with me so I know.
They
when
kept
it's all
pushing
in.
you. I wanted it to be real. They kept pushing you and saying heart murmur, heart murmur, heart murmur, fear, 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 fear. Right?
Mhm.
Isn't that's the way I remember it? Anything
Yeah.
else? And then they scheduled the surgery.
Well, he passed out a couple times, and that scared me. So after that, they decided to do a pacemaker, and that didn't help a whole lot. But then they did another heart cath to see if they could find something else, and then they did more stents, and they then finally put in a valve, and he just kept getting weaker and weaker and weaker,
Right?
and after the valve, they over-medicated him so much that he had another stroke, and while in the hospital.
Mhm.
So that's when you came and decided you had to do something with us.
What did I do?
Well, you talked us into doing something with our food and everything else.
Well,
Well, you'd had us taking some supplements before.
yeah. Up to that point, they
We
were taking
weren't-
they were taking
We weren't
supplements.
totally sold on it.
Yeah, they weren't
We were
sold.
from the
100%.
old school. And I was raised on sugar, sugar, sugar.
And flour
Uh-huh.
and deep
And
fried, heavy duty
Dad's
southern.
favorite food is bread,
Right.
and so it was hard to change. Still is, kinda, he still craves some of it.
Yeah. So, how was the treatment that you got overall? If somebody were to ask you, how was the treatment like in the medical community that you got for all of these conditions, the stents, the valves, the pacemakers, all this crap? Well, I shouldn't say it like that. All of this treatment, how do you feel like you got?
We never knew what was going on or why.
How many doctors
You
did you go
didn't.
to?
Uh-huh.
How many? Just an estimate.
I have no idea.
4 or 14?
Probably 8 or 10.
8 or 10 doctors, all specialists, neurologists, cardiologists, all these
Sending
appointments.
you everywhere.
All these appointments, sending you different labs, different imaging, all
And then
kinds
you'd
of
have
stuff.
to get a second opinion.
Then get a second opinion. How much did this tear into your life and your
That's all we did for a while.
your stress levels?
Doctor, doctor, doctor.
I remember every time I have a scheduled meeting with my mom every Sunday. I'll call her. What are you doing this week? Oh, we're going to the eye doctor, the ear doctor, the nose doctor, the throat doctor, the gut doctor, the butt doctor, the liver doctor, the heart doctor, the lung doctor, the
Well,
face
it wasn't
doctor,
quite that
the
bad.
head doctor. Like, how do you have time to do anything? You've got 15 doctor's appointments in a week.
Mm.
How do you guys do this? But when you're Medicare,
That's where they send you.
that's what happens. That's what happens. So, what was the care, the level of care, like on a 1 to 10, how happy were you with it?
Well, at the time, I didn't know any better. I didn't know the difference. I was raised to do everything a doctor told you and make every appointment they told you and do everything they said and
Never
not
doubt
question anything.
it. Right.
Just go with it. If they put you on 10 drugs, you took them.
10 drugs. You mean these? 10 of these?
Whatever kind you,
Oh, the
you
kind
just took.
the kind that you don't want to put in a landfill.
Mhm,
You want to have the household hazardous waste days to put your medicine and drugs
mhm.
in the
So,
special containers so they don't leak into the water. Yeah, that's the drugs.
He was on a lot of medication,
He was on how many meds?
probably 8 or 10.
8 or 10 meds. And he had how many procedures? With stress tests,
No,
heart caths,
with all the
transesophageal catheters. What else? MRIs, CAT scans, all the procedures. You name one, he had it. Ultrasound.
Several heart caths.
If you guys remember anything, several heart caths, heart monitors.
They still monitor the pacemaker occasionally.
And the pacemaker that they installed, they never bothered to let you know that it was Bluetooth capable, right? So they never bothered. And when I got to the hospital in April for the surgery in Michigan, they were wheeling in a thing for another round of antibiotic therapy, they called it. Remember that? Antibiotic therapy.
That we didn't know, that was the 3rd dose.
That was the 3rd or 4th dose. I wrote it all down. I've got
And we-
records on this. I've got
we didn't know
names,
he had the
addresses,
first
the whole 9 yards. They never knew that he had 2 or 3 previous rounds of antibiotics. They would just come in and give him drugs. Even though even though there were some situations that he wasn't getting better gut-wise and, trying to go to the bathroom, stuff like that. So they never told you. In the hospital.
Well, you have no idea what's going on because they don't tell you. You don't, and you don't think to question anything.
Yeah.
Because if you said, "Should he have that?" they'd say, "Yeah, give it to him."
Should he have that? Yeah, it's part of his therapy. They name it, they label it antibiotic therapy. See?
Well, they told us after that that's what they do for everybody.
For everybody. It's preventative.
Anybody that has
Yeah.
surgery
It's preventative. Right.
gets it, and
Right.
the same dosage, no matter if they're
Baby or
100-pound
yeah.
or 1,000-pound. It's the same.
Same
Everybody
dose.
gets the same.
sounds scientific,
And he
doesn't it?
couldn't tolerate it.
That's totally science right there, isn't it? He couldn't tolerate it, so they kept wanting to pump him full of antibiotics. They wanted to feed him the hospital food, which he had another little episode right after the hospital food. Then the doctors swoop in with their crash carts and 7 or 8 of them, PAs and nurses standing around saying, what were they asking you?
What's his name? What's he in here for?
What's his name? Why is he here?
Mm-hmm.
What are his drugs? And what's he allergic to?
I didn't have a clue. I was scared to death.
You're scared to death. You don't remember any of this. And
they
it was
should know.
all, well, they should know, number one. But number two, they should notice that it's all written on the whiteboard right behind all 6 or 8 of them. That wasn't. So how impressed were you with the care that you received at that hospital? That I used to work at, by the way. That's the same hospital I worked at. How did you feel about that?
Scared to death.
Scared
Didn't
to
know what
death.
was going on because I could tell nobody knew
Anything.
any more about it than I did.
Right.
That's the way I felt.
You felt
They-
more
they did.
informed than they did.
Because you had the doctor that was on
Right.
call at the time, which wasn't
Right.
anybody I would ever go to.
So, and you've been married 50,
It'll be 60 years this year.
not, I was going to say 59 years, coming up on 60 years. So here you are in the hospital, not knowing what's going on. They don't know his name, his medications, his allergies, or the procedures that he's had. And he's been in the hospital at that point for 2 days, and he'd had a heart valve, a catheter, and a pacemaker put in, and they didn't know who he was.
And all of them had a computer that should have had everything on it.
There were 3 computers in that room. So once you came to the realization, like, holy cow, we got to change this, and this is not right, you took him off, or you sovereignly decided we're not doing the medications.
Oh, he went home with a load of medication.
You went home with a load of them, but did you take them?
For a little while,
Okay.
off and on.
What made you decide to come off of the poisons?
Well, they had him, for one thing, they had him on blood thinner, that he was being monitored 2 or 3 times a week at the hospital with blood test.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the nurses, every time we'd go, she would call it rat poison. We didn't know what it was.
One of the nurses
So-
pointed out that warfarin is 1 atom different from Coumadin. Or Coumadin. Coumadin and warfarin are the same. One's a brand name, one's a generic. But they're 1 atom difference from a molecule. Coumadin makes rats bleed. They hemorrhage and they die. So that's how we discovered the blood thinner. And warfarin is the generic name of Coumadin. So he was already on. He'd already been on that for a long time. He'd been on Prilosec for 30
He
years.
was on, oh yeah.
He was on Coumadin. He was on Eliquis. They wanted to put him on, right? Or he was already
He
on
was
that
on
for a while.
Eliquis toward the end.
So when all the doctors come in and say, "Well, we need to put him. We need to do a CAT scan with contrast and this and that," I said, "Why do we need to do a contrast if it's toxic to his kidneys? The contrast agent is a radioactive dye that's toxic to the kidneys, and he's already having a urinary problem. Why would we do that?" They said, "Well, he probably has a clot." To which I said, "Well, he's on 2 or 3 blood thinners right now, so the chances of him having a clot versus having a bleed are highly outnumbered with the bleed. Wouldn't you say?" And they all just kind of,
Looked at us like we were, well, I didn't know the
"You didn't
difference.
know, but there's only 2 kinds of strokes you can have. You either have a clot or you have a blown artery." And I said, "Well, if he's got a clot, what are you going to do? You're just going to give him another blood thinner. But if he has a bleed, what are you going to do?" "Well, nothing. We can't do anything." "Exactly. So you just want to put him on more blood thinners because that's the only thing you can do, right?" And I said, "Well, how's the risk versus benefit ratio? How's that work out?"
They didn't know.
They didn't know. And that shut them down right there, and they all walked out. So going back into all the drugs that he was already on the blood thinners. He was on Prilosec for years. So finally, what made you finally come off, and a bunch of other stuff, 10 meds? What made you come off
He was on a lot of blood pressure and
the
cholesterol,
Cinepril?
everything. His blood pressure, or his cholesterol was 150, and they had him on Lipitor,
Of course.
and
Yep.
they had him on a couple of blood pressure meds, and his blood pressure was never high.
There are many doctors who say any cholesterol below 220 is too low. He was at 150, and they still had him on a statin drug
For a long time.
for a long time. Yep. So now, what made you finally pull the plug and say, "I'm not doing the drugs anymore"?
Well, I kept reading stuff and
What did you read?
looking at stuff. Well, you gave me some stuff, and I
What was it then?
started looking at the
Was it just books
prescription.
and-
When I'd get a prescription, I'd read the insert. It would scare you to death.
The insert of the prescription,
Uh-huh.
the drug. Right. Nobody does that. Who taught you to do that?
Probably you. I don't know. I just thought
But
I
there
better
were-
read this and see what.
Yeah, but
But
there
it
were
does.
other books and things readily available. I never told you to
No.
stop, come off the drugs.
No. But
But these books are readily available to anybody. Most of them written by pharmacists and medical doctors.
the average person doesn't read them or doesn't
Yeah.
look at them.
The average person watches what?
TV.
Which is owned by what?
The drug companies.
The drug companies, the largest advertiser. So will the average
Because you
person
see it all the time.
all day? Will the average person get the truth? They just
No.
watch TV.
No.
That's why one of the things in here, the ways to manage that polytherapeutic strategy that we put down, like how to take out Keep America Beautiful. The very last thing was limiting your social media, newspapers, and TV. It's one of the big things because you won't see the truth.
No, you see that drug advertised and it sounds so good. Well, that would help me. So
Yeah. And they know that most people Medicare aged are going to be home watching during this time to this time, and so they flood with advertisements. So just real quick, we're almost done. So then you moved down here. Why'd you move down here?
to try to get him feeling better, he was just fading.
Because you kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, but you kind of got to your wit's end with what was offered to you.
Nothing else to do, really.
Yeah, because it was just drug. Every time you'd go, I remember talking to you on the phone, and you'd say, I'd say, "How did your doctor appointments go?" "Well, they just want to put him on a drug. They want to put him on a drug." That was all they could do.
Well, when we went back for a pacemaker check, they wanted to go back in and zap the pacemaker.
Zap the pacemaker. That
Zap.
sounds.
And I said, what
Sounds
good would
wonderful.
that do? Would that, because he was complaining with fatigue. He was just too tired to sit up, And would that help his fatigue? No, it wouldn't help, but
It's a procedure we could bill for.
yeah,
Right.
he just said we could zap it.
We could zap it
And when we wouldn't agree to that, he wanted to put him on blood thinner
again.
And Dad spoke up then, said, "I'm not taking rat poison." He said, "Well, we give you something different."
A different rat poison.
Yeah.
That's a very important point that we covered a few weeks ago. If one drug reacts badly for you, they swap that drug out and go to a different drug within the same family
Yeah, it's the same.
and give
thing.
you that one. Common. Very common. Ask any pharmacist, ask any medical doctor. It's a common procedure.
Because I really
common
got
practice.
scared of blood thinner when one of my friends had a brain bleed and
Mhm.
almost died.
So then
that
what?
taught me.
So that taught you something.
Mm-hmm.
And you've seen many friends come and go. Have you ever seen anybody get massively better by taking cholesterol drugs?
No.
Have you ever seen anybody get massively better by taking blood pressure meds?
Mm-mm.
You ever seen anybody get massively better by taking a drug?
No.
Okay,
They just take them because the doctor tells them.
correct. So what made you pull back, and then you weren't getting any answers there, so then what brought you down here?
Well, I just kept asking the doctors, you know, because his legs were aching and this and that, and I said maybe it's the Lipitor, and so, well, possibly it could be, so let him stop it for a few days and see if it helps, and so we just go off then.
Let him stop it for a few days and see if it helps, but previously it was given for life-saving reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So then what
So-
happened when finally you went to a doctor and you said he wasn't taking anything? What happened then? Or that was you.
No.
That was you.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
think I told him he wasn't taking anything.
Okay.
I just kind of take him for a checkup and see how he was doing, and
Yeah, yeah.
he was doing great, and
Yeah.
I didn't tell him.
You didn't tell him that he wasn't. He was, but they said he's doing great. He's doing great,
Yeah,
and he wasn't taking any of the
he
meds.
wasn't taking them
Yeah.
like they'd prescribed, so.
At all. Okay. So then why did you? So he's, how has he done since ceasing all his medications? You'd say he's improved overall.
Mm-hmm.
So he moved here 6 months ago. Why did you move? Why did you move down here?
For you
To-
to help him?
To give us a chance to try to. And this isn't toot my own horn or
Well,
pump my
I
own
know
tires
you
at all.
cared,
Yeah.
and I hadn't found anybody that cared.
Yeah. So if you don't care for your own parents, who are you going to care for? I mean, let's just be real.
Mhm.
And then
'Cause
you
you-
came down.
You want to help people. That's
Yeah.
your goal in life. So.
You're gonna make me cry. Stop it. So you came down here. We got better.
We've improved. a
You've
lot.
improved.
Mhm.
How much have you improved? We delivered the progress report yesterday, a couple days ago. How much did you improve just since being here for 6 months?
Well, 75%, but that was on the low side.
Yeah,
'Cause I was,
yeah,
yeah,
75% better. How old are you now?
almost 79.
Almost 79. How many drugs are you on?
No,
You've improved 75% in 6 months. Okay. How much did Dad improve?
well, he said 30, but he's
That's on the low
a
side.
low baller.
He's a low baller.
He's improved a lot more than that.
He's improved quite a bit in 6
We
months.
can all see that.
How many meds is he on?
None.
0. How old is he?
85. He'll be 86 this year.
And he improved low side 30% in 6 months. What other doctor's office? What other cardiologist did he improve 30% when he got the valve done?
No, he didn't improve at all.
Did he
That was
improve
what
30% when he
shocked
got the pacemaker?
us. No,
Did he improve 30% when he got the heart stent? No. Did he improve 30% when he was on 10 meds?
no, it all took him down.
So there's a pattern there. It seems like. Seems like there's a pattern.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So now, what would you say to somebody if they were in a similar situation?
Try to get some help that cares and that will get your overall help, not just want to give you a prescription every time you go in the door.
Right. Well, what have you done though? And I mean, I've treated you here,
Well,
obviously, but
we've-
what have you
we've
done
cha-
on your own? Because you've done most of the work.
We've changed our diet,
In what way?
cut out sugar and flour, and eat a lot of better stuff for us. Yeah.
So, like, what kind of
Not
stuff?
the boxed and the
Yeah.
fast food. Oh,
You did. How
We
much
were
fast
on-
food did you do?
we were on fast food. Terrible.
What kind of fast food?
Oh, McDonald's, Taco Bell, Arby's, all of it. Kentucky Fried,
Kentucky Fried Chicken. What else? There was
Burger King.
Little Caesars every once in a while.
Yeah.
Burger
Pizza.
King. What is it?
Wendy's.
Wendy's.
Yeah.
Oh, we left out Wendy's.
Yeah.
I know there's more,
Our
but
little town's got them all. So.
yeah, ourlittletown.com has every one of them.
But, you know, it was just the two of us, and I didn't cook a whole lot, so we
Yeah.
just went out.
So how hard was it?
Denny's and,
Oh yeah, Denny's. Yeah. So how hard was it to learn this new behavior?
oh, it's almost killed me.
See, that's organic. I didn't program that response. I would have edited that one
No,
out.
I've,
No, how
I've
honestly, how
cooked.
hard was it? How hard was it to learn how to not go kill yourself and pay somebody money to kill you? How hard was
it's
that?
not hard at all if you
Yeah.
get committed.
If you
I
get
just
committed.
wasn't committed before.
Yeah.
I should have done it years ago.
Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah. Yeah.
It just took me a long time to convert.
And
But
you
you
think-
gotta do it a little at a time.
Yeah.
You can't just do it instantly.
Yeah.
You know,
Doesn't happen
you
overnight.
gotta,
Little by
I started
little.
out with the shakes in the morning
Yeah,
and go from there.
yeah. Start out with breakfast.
Yeah.
Just
you
one
can-
little
can
thing.
do-
Start out with
You can
breakfast.
do breakfast
Right.
easier. Of
Right.
course, we were used to bacon, eggs, gravy, biscuit, and, you know, fried apples.
Yeah. And what will
So-
you do going forward now when you go home?
Try to do the same we've been doing.
Continue the same thing. Are you
Eat more green stuff.
and how many doctor's visits are you going to schedule?
None.
How many times a week do they call you with an automated message to get you to come in? Automated, not a human, a computer calling you with a recording. How many times a week do you get phone calls?
Some weeks 10 or more.
10 calls a week to come in and get your appointment scheduled.
It's
Did you guys know that?
It's definitely every day.
Brand new to me. Yeah, every
And
day
I have left messages that were out of state, and
for 6 months.
when we get back home, I'll call them when we need them. Doesn't do any good. They still call and want to schedule an appointment.
So for 6 months, you've gotten calls every day from different doctors' offices to come back in. Dermatology, cardiology, nephrology,
Most-
neurology,
90% are heart.
and 90% of them being heart. So anything else? Any other nugget of wisdom that you've gained from this whole experience?
I'll think of something about 3 o'clock this morning.
Okay, good. Good. We'll do another one of these. So thank you, Mom. I'm glad you came down. It was a pleasure and a privilege and an honor to be able to help you, and I'm glad. I mean, it was a lot of weight that hit my shoulders when they first moved down, I'll be honest. And I didn't know, what to do, but everything's worked out. Do you have any questions or anything?
No.
We're good? So everything worked out, but the point that we wanted to make with all this is, just like we told you at the beginning of this, there are people out there that are dying, there are people out there that are being killed, there are people out there that are not being told the truth, whether it's breast implants, like we talked about, or whether it's herbicide, whether it's Roundup, whether it's Monsanto, whether it's sugar, whether it's flour, whether it's the drugs, there's so much misinformation out there, and you're already seeing censorship. You're already seeing it in social media. You're already seeing it everywhere you look. You're not being told the truth on CNN or USA Today. This right here is a lovely example. That's why I wanted to share this with you. Of you can change and things can get better. You can be healthier 5 years from now than you are right now, if you just avail yourself of some of this information. That's all you had to do. You had to learn. You read a couple books. What was the book that you read just recently, just yesterday, or over the weekend?
I don't remember the name of it, but it was about the...
The Lethal Dose. It was written by a medical doctor who no longer is allowed to practice in the United States because she won't prescribe medications. So she's practicing out of Panama.
It's eye-opening.
It's very
scary.
eye-opening. Yeah, it's very eye-opening. So there are many things like that out there, such as, there's a bunch of stuff here. How to Live to be 100 in Spite of Your Doctor by Dr. Bruce Hagen. This is just part of my library. Dress to Kill, the link between breast cancer and bras. We didn't get a chance to talk about that, but any one of you who's been through an HRV here at our office knows wired bras, what we tell people about wired bras. Here is that book, The Lethal Dose, Why Your Doctor is Prescribing It. Murder by Medicine is No Accident by Dr. Jennifer Daniels. She's a she's a medical doctor that went to Harvard for her undergrad, but then went to Pennsylvania for her medical degree. Murder by Medicine, The Lethal Dose, Why Your Doctor is Prescribing It. It goes through the pharmaceutical side of things, the insurance side of things. This is what you just read over the weekend. Very revealing. A big shout out goes to Sonia Krigo for turning me on to that book. Take Control of Your Health by Dr. Joseph Mercola. He's a doctor of osteopathy. He's a medical doctor, a DO. So see, and he does not prescribe medications. Actually, his entire website, it's the biggest natural health website on planet Earth, is his. He's a medical doctor who does not prescribe medications, actually rails against them, goes off about them. Yeah,
I'm
it's huge.
surprised they don't take his life.
Well, he just backed out of the system. Now he's making all of his money off the internet.
Oh,
They can't touch him. So this is just part of the stuff that she's been reading over the last few years, that I've turned my family onto in the last few years. Part of the stuff that you learn when you come here. So other than that, anything else to say?
no, I think the cholesterol book you gave me way back was one of
Yeah.
an eye-opening thing,
Yep.
because we were both on.
Okay. Yeah, The Cholesterol Myth by Dr. Johnny Sinatra. Yeah, that's a good one. We got to sign off. The battery's dying on this. But say bye. Facebook, thank
Bye-bye.
you. Like, share, send. Like, share, send. Dr. Brett Spradlin, Divine Design Natural Health. Thank you very much. Yeah, the Cholesterol Myth book. That was a good one.
Do you want to say anything?
Um,
Oh, Zachary checked in.
oh, Zachary, future medical doctor in training, right there. Yeah, yeah. He's Zachary's learning the truth here. Yeah, Zachary, thumbs up, man. Love you. Okay, congratulations too, by the way. Anybody else?
Nope.
That it? Thank you, Facebook. Hold on, I get a hug, and we'll talk to you 2 weeks. We're doing Earth Day and Ancient Medicine.
See you
Respect
then.
the earth. See you then. Thank you very much.